Hello and welcome to another episode of Hollywood Wargaming, and today we are going to be doing another upgrade ranking review for Star Wars Legion, this time focusing on the grenade upgrade. And of course I saved this one for last, as it is probably the most irrelevant general upgrade option. Not only is it more scarce in appearance than things like training or gear, but it also doesn't have a whole lot of options, and more importantly, it's probably one of the least utilized, and for good reasons. For the most part, grenades act as a sort of gimmick that's going to give you better offensive capabilities once you get into range 1. And while sometimes those will be buying you a better offensive dice color, most of the time you're just paying for an extra keyword. But that is a very blunt analogy, so let's just go ahead and dive right into the grenades and elaborate on what I mean here. And first up here, we are going to have Concussion Grenades. At 3 points, you will be gaining 1 black die, at range 1 of course, along with a blast keyword allowing you to ignore cover. And this will be a B ranking card for me. Blast is a great keyword, and having a black die is very useful if your attack is normally weaker than that, but that keyword does lose a lot of its luster when you consider that you have to be at range 1 to use it. Sure, it will always come into play when you're attacking units with suppression tokens, but for the most part, once you come in range 1, you are going to start putting pressure on your opponents, and likely be able to circumnavigate that cover altogether. Now, there's definitely certain opponents you will come up against who make better use of cover with special keywords, but for the most part, this is a pretty middle-of-the-road upgrade, and definitely not the best appearance of that blast keyword on a weapon profile. Still, at just 3 points, it might be decent to throw onto your assault squad, should you know that your opponent's going to be heavily fortified. But after the Concussion Grenade, we are going to have the Emp Droid Poppers, which will again give you a black dice at range 1 for 3 points, this time granting you the Ion 1 keyword. And this will unfortunately be a D ranking for me. It's only really worth taking if you're up against a droid army. And while it might sound appealing to take this upgrade and potentially take activations away from your opponent's 200-point vehicle, the chances of you actually coming into range 1 and being able to do that is somewhat slim. Most vehicles have range 3 to 4 weapons, and their larger bases allow them to move more rapidly away from incoming infantry or other perceived threats. And I want you all to keep that point in mind, as it will come into play later in this video when we look at another grenade variety. But next up, we are going to have Fragmentation Grenades, and this will be a 5-point upgrade, giving you red dice at range 1, along with Surge to Crits. And that will make this an S tier ranked card for me, and honestly the only grenade I really consider ever taking. Red dice are obviously great, and are a universal upgrade on almost every trooper unit in the game who can take grenades, but then they also throw Surge to Crit into that equation, and make them all the more lethal. So for 5 points, Fragmentation Grenades are giving you a really amazing ranged attack. Yes, that range is only range 1, but it's a bargain worth considering. And things only get more interesting when you consider equipping these on a squad with something like a Z6, and mix your high volume dice firepower with that Surge to Crits for some very shock and awe style close range combat. Still, just because Fragmentation Grenades are S tier doesn't mean I recommend taking them in every list you build. Like many upgrades in Legion, they are a point sink, and in the case of grenades, you really do have to stick your neck out to make use of them by putting your units within range 1 of your opponents, which can really get a unit vaporized if you time it poorly. But that will move us along to our next upgrade, which is going to be the Impact Grenades, and yes, you guessed it, this will be a 3-point upgrade with black dice and the Impact 1 keyword. And this will be a D tier card for me. Much like Droid Poppers and Concussion Grenades, many times you are going to be paying for a keyword, and in this scenario the keyword is probably the least useful, as Impact is notoriously underwhelming, and as I mentioned earlier, you are not likely going to be able to close the ground and come within range 1 of your enemy vehicles, who will certainly be the target of this grenade. It's just a bad upgrade, and probably the worst way you can squeeze that Impact keyword into your list, and on top of all that, you're only getting Impact 1. Now, with Blast and Surge to Crit, that's going to affect all of your dice, and even with Ion, you are going to be taking away an activation with that 1 token. But with Impact 1, you're only adding 1 crit to your hit pool against armor, which is just such an incremental bonus, it's just not worth it. But lastly, we are going to have Smoke Grenades, and this will be a 2-point upgrade, giving you the Smoke 1 keyword, which will be an action that allows you to place 1 smoke token within range 1 and line of sight of this unit. And that smoke token is going to increase the cover of all trooper units within range 1 of it by 1. So basically throw this out there, all trooper units nearby it gain cover 1, or cover 2 if they have a suppression token. and this card will rank in at C tier. Honestly, it sounds pretty good on paper being able to just deploy cover like that, but in practice, it still takes up an action from a unit and requires you to really lump your troops together, and if you really consider how things play out on the battlefield, its bonuses are just incredibly incremental, to the point where it's not really worth paying points for. But I'll be honest, I don't have a whole lot of experience on the battlefield with this upgrade. I've only really used smoke with R2-D2's command card, and it just never seems to be as useful as I think it would be. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Perhaps there is some hidden strategy I'm missing here, and honestly I could see this maybe working out very well for the rebels. But that is going to wrap up all our grenades for the time being, and as you can see here, I do find this category to be relatively mediocre. I think frag grenades are the only upgrade here worth taking, and even then I don't usually end up taking them, and I'm sure I'm not alone on that. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Are there any grenades that you think are a must-take? Or is there any that you think give frag grenades a run for their money? But as always, if you liked the video, go ahead, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, leave a like, all that fun stuff, and until next time guys, take care.